lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and east, to the north and south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you, and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised. Now, Jacob doesn't really quite get it. He wakes up and says, surely this is the house of God I happened to stumble on. He names it Bethel, house of God. But let me tell you something. The reason God was there was because that's where Jacob was. It wasn't that he stumbled onto the right place. It wouldn't have mattered where Jacob would have put his head down that night. God wanted to make it very clear on his first night away from home, I'm going to be faithful to you. And so he gives him this picture of these angels ascending and descending. And Jacob doesn't really quite understand it. But you know what he's saying? Jacob, all of my mighty hosts will be watching over you and this wonderful thing I am doing as I make of you a nation. And all of the hosts of heaven will be ascending and descending and doing my bidding, and wherever you are, you won't see them, but they are there, watching over you, because I'm going to make of you that great nation I promised to your father. I'll be with you wherever you go. Jacob gets up, wow, this must be the house of God. No, the only reason that God is here is because Jacob is here. I think to myself, you know, God has made a similar promise to me as a believer. And He has said, I'll be with you wherever you go. That I'll never leave you and I'll never forsake you. And you'll never be out of my presence. And my power, I mean, I've got all the angels at my disposal, Jerry. There is nothing that I cannot do for you. Of course, Jacob had 12 sons and 1 daughter. Jacob's name was changed. This is just a chart of those. Leah had all of those. We have the 12 tribes of Israel, and we have the 12 sons of Israel, and it's not the same. Okay? Now here's some complication for you. All right? When you're mentioning the 12 tribes of Israel, we have to understand that there is not a tribe called the tribe of Joseph. You never heard of the tribe of Joseph, have you? That's because Jacob, when he is blessing them in chapter 48, I think, he blesses these 2 sons and says, I'm adopting, Joseph, your 2 boys, Ephraim and Manasseh, as though they were my own sons. So Jacob had 12 sons, right? But there's not a tribe of Joseph, there's a tribe of the 2 sons. There are 2 tribes, the 2 sons of Joseph. That's 13. But you never hear of, and then the 13 tribes of Israel went out from, you always hear the 12 tribes. Now that's a little confusing, isn't it? Because it's not the tribe of Joseph. We have Ephraim and Manasseh. So why is that? Well, you'll notice when they're listing the 12 tribes, they generally don't mention Levi. They'll mention Ephraim and Manasseh, but a lot of times Levi is left out. Why? Well, because Levi doesn't inherit one single plot of ground. He is given an inheritance of several cities. Okay, Levi, sorry about it, but yeah. You don't get any land. Does anybody know why? Well, it had to do with Shechem. And I'm going to quit, I think, with this part. What happened was that they had the one sister, didn't they? You remember, Leah was the one producing all the kids. She had 7 kids. And among those kids was Levi and Simeon and the sister. What was the sister's name? Dinah. Someone was in the kitchen. Well, what happened was, one day she was out, you know, and Shechem, from the town of Shechem, Shechem was a man, and from the town of Shechem, that's confusing. No, you've got that straight. All right. Raped her. And it became known to the brothers that their sister had just been raped. And Shechem loved her and wanted to marry her. And Levi and Simeon kind of took matters into their own hands, and they met with him, and they said, "Oh, you want to marry our sister? Very good. All right, tell you what, we will permit that under one condition, and that is all the males are circumcised, because it's our custom." And Shechem goes back, they talk to the people of the city, all the men, then they say, "Well, okay, that's not so bad. We'll do that." And so all of them, the men, were circumcised. And about the third day after that procedure, Levi and Simeon came into the town and they killed everybody. They deceived them. What should have been the death of Shechem now was the death of everybody in the town. Well, Dad hears about it, and he is furious. So in Genesis chapter 49, if you turn there with me to Genesis 49, Jacob is about to die. He's down in Egypt with all of the family. He's old. He's an old man now, and he's about to die. And he calls his sons in, his 12 sons in, and he says, "Sons, come to me and gather to your father, and I'm going to tell you the things that are going to befall you in later days." I like to think of this as the Jacob prophecy. He's prophesying the future of his sons. It is divinely inspired prophecy. And what he is saying is going to come to pass. It would be in these words in Genesis 49 that Judah is identified as the kingly tribe, and through which the Messiah eventually then would come. Look what he says about Levi and Simeon. Have you found that? And he says to these guys, he says, Simeon and Levi are brothers. And what he means by that is they're full brothers. They're the sons of who? Leah. Okay, they're brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council, let me not join their assembly, for they have killed men in their anger and hamstrung oxen as they pleased. Cursed be their anger so fierce and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them in Israel. And by that, what he is saying is, you guys don't get land. When they start dividing the land up, you don't get it. Now, it would be generations later, guys that really had nothing to do with it, but this particular curse on them, I would call it a curse, is going to prevent them from ever owning property. So, the Levites were given cities, and then some of those cities would become the cities of refuge, and the Levites were to operate that. The Levites also were given special privileges and purpose to handle the worship of Israel. And so God really wound up blessing them. As far as Simeon goes, Simeon got his place to stay and live within the territory of Judah. Judah was the largest tribe when they came across the Jordan River, and they had the largest allotment of land. And so God puts, they allot to Simeon property within the borders. They don't own it. It belongs to Judah. But they can stay there. And that lasts for quite a while, but it doesn't last a real long time, and apparently the Philistines and also the probably the tribe of Judah kind of squeezes them out, and they wind up migrating north into the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh. So that when you have the split of the kingdom later on, the 10 tribes will include Simeon, and in the south you have 2 tribes, Judah, and the other one is Benjamin, because Benjamin was small at that time due to circumstances we won't go into right now. But so they were just north and on the east part of the territory of Judah. And so when the kingdom splits after Solomon dies, Benjamin stays with Judah, but Simeon had already migrated north to the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh. Is that making sense? Did anybody get lost in that? Look at a map. Okay. All right. Let's see. Joseph, we're just going to mention that he was sold into slavery, became Potiphar's prisoner, and later on became what? He became prime minister. So we went from prisoner to prime minister. Famine brings them down to Egypt, and then Jacob's prophecies we've gone into already. All right. Now, I want to encourage all of you to go back over that material. We didn't hit all the main chapters of it, but I gave you in your notes some of the main big chapters that you ought to spend some time reading. And I really encourage you to keep up with your reading, because that, if you get behind, it's going to be some of a problem. Also, I've given you some other things I didn't go through tonight, and I want you to just look through some of that, and then there's the test also. Now, a clarification for last week's test. You should have a practice sheet that looks something like this in your notes tonight. A practice sheet, and it has here all of the books of the Old Testament in their chronological sequence, but they're not written on the page. And across the top, there are the Bible periods that course, so that you can see where these books fit into in the Bible periods. Now, what I meant to give you last week was a copy of this with the bottom part filled in, and so you can do the top part. This week, what I'm just going to do is have you try to fill out as much as you can of this, and it's instructed in your notes. Try to fill out as much of this chart as you can. If you have a copy, most of you have a copy of this all filled out anyway. And now I would like for you this week to transfer to a practice copy all of the Bible periods down through number 11. And so you'll start with creation to Abraham, and then Abraham to Moses, and so on. The last one will be intertestamental period on this chart. And then you'll start to get this committed to memory. Now is the time for you to start memorizing this chart. And it's not too hard if you just remember Jonah Jaws in the north and OIM in Hertz, JJ. And if you remember the last 3 books on this side are the last 3 books of the Old Testament. It's not hard then. And you can march right through it. Okay? All right. Question over here. Say that again. Yeah, we got it today in the notes. There it is right there.
Okay, but now this has 11, and this one here says 13.
Yeah, because we don't have the New Testament in here.
If you go back to chapter 1, you got the
Yeah.
sheet.
There it is right there. It's all filled out. You should have a...
Still